Kyle Busch did not lose his temper at Bristol. He did something far more dangerous. He stayed calm, stayed patient, and waited 185 laps for the right moment. Then, with just a handful of laps left in the race, he made his move. And Denny Hamlin heard the whole thing, went on his podcast, and said exactly what everyone was thinking. Let's start with what actually triggered all of this, because before you can understand Busch's move, you need to know what happened first, and what was said on the team radio before it went down. It was lap 313 at Bristol Motor Speedway. Riley Herbst, driving the number 35 Stewart-Haas Toyota, made contact with Kyle Busch's number 8 RCR Chevrolet and turned him. That alone would have been enough to put most drivers on edge. But here is the part that makes this story a whole lot worse for Herbst's camp. Before Herbst made that move, someone on his team got on the radio and gave him a direct instruction. The call was clear: drive right into his left rear. And that is exactly what Herbst did. He barely touched Busch, but the contact landed right where the radio said it would. Busch went spinning. The crowd reacted. And from that moment, the clock started on something that would completely change the end of that race. Now here is where it gets interesting. Busch did not immediately go hunting. He did not grab the wheel tighter and go straight at Herbst. He kept racing. He stayed composed. But Bristol is the kind of track where races push past 500 laps, and Busch had a long memory and a full race still left to run. So he waited. And while he waited, his day got worse. Here is what you have to understand about Busch's full day at Bristol before we get to lap 498. He was in the middle of one of the worst races of his 2026 season, and that is saying something, because his 2026 season has been a disaster from the jump. The number 8 RCR Chevrolet had no speed. None. The team could not make the adjustments they needed at any point during the race. The car was off, the setup was off, and everyone inside that pit box knew it. Busch would eventually cross the line in 25th place, 2 full laps down. Now remember that radio call that told Herbst to hit Busch in the left rear. Keep that in your head because it becomes important again when we get to what Hamlin said on Monday. After Herbst turned him, spotter Derek Nealand and crew chief Jim Pullman got into a tense exchange over the radio. Nealand tried to hold things together. He told Pullman directly, "Listen, I know you're frustrated. I don't like running 30th either. But us yelling at each other during the race isn't going to help." He told him they needed to stay locked in, stay together as a team, that they were only barely halfway through the race, and it was not over yet. When Nealand finished, there was silence on the other end. He had to come back on and ask, "You copy?" Pullman came back with 2 words. "Yeah, copy." And then 3 more words that paint the clearest picture of where this team is right now. "It's the same stuff every week." That line tells you everything you need to know. This is not one rough Sunday at Bristol. This is a team that has been grinding through the same problems week after week without finding a fix. And the people inside the team are starting to feel it. But stay with me, because we still have not gotten to the moment the whole NASCAR world is actually talking about. 185 laps after Herbst put Busch in the wall, Busch spotted Herbst's car right in front of him. The laps were counting down fast. The race was almost done. And Busch made a decision. He drove straight through him. He sent the number 35 spinning into the wall, triggered the final caution of the race, and sent the whole thing into overtime. It was not accidental. It was not a side-by-side racing moment that got out of hand. Busch saw the window, made a choice, and used it. The race finish was completely changed because of what he did. Denny Hamlin broke it all down the next morning on his Actions Detrimental podcast. If you do not know the show, Hamlin runs it every Monday after race weekends. He races, he co-owns 23XI Racing with Michael Jordan, and he is one of the few people in this sport who will say exactly what he thinks without softening it. So when he talked about Busch and Herbst, he did not talk around it. Hamlin said that by the time Busch got to lap 498, the number 8 team had already met their fun quota for the day. That phrase alone tells you everything. Think about what that day looked like inside that team. A car with no speed, a crew chief and spotter snapping at each other. 25th place, 2 laps down. By the time Busch found Herbst in his sights, the race had nothing left to give him. And then came one small window. Here is the quote that stuck. Hamlin said, "Kyle saw an opportunity and he took it. Did I have a problem with it? Yes and no, but more no than yes." He added that he does not love blatant payback moves on track, but he understood exactly why it happened and where it came from. That is a very specific kind of answer. He is not defending it completely. He is not condemning it either. He is putting it in the context of everything that surrounded it, and that context matters. Because here is the part of this story that ties it all together. Kyle Busch is a two-time NASCAR Cup Series champion. He has 61 wins at the top level of this sport. For years, he was one of the most consistent winners NASCAR had ever seen. But right now, in the 2026 season, he has not had a single top 10 finish. Not one. His last 4 starts have all ended 21st or worse, and his career-long winless streak is now sitting at 101 consecutive races. 101 races. For a driver who won so regularly that it felt automatic, RCR signed him expecting him to be their anchor. And right now, the car is not fast enough. The team is venting frustration on the radio mid-race, and no top 10 has come through the first stretch of 2026. So go back to lap 498. Go back to that moment when Herbst was right there, the laps were running out, and Busch still had nothing good to show for his day. The car was off, the result was gone, and the only thing left on track was unfinished business. Now think about that radio call again from Herbst's team before lap 313 telling their driver to go straight into Busch's left rear. That moment did not disappear. It stayed with him every lap after. This was not just short track contact. This was not two drivers leaning on each other in tight traffic. That was a deliberate hit, called in on the radio, executed on track, and it changed Busch's entire race from that point forward. When you understand that, everything that happened later starts to make a lot more sense. Busch remembered it for 185 laps. That is the part most people miss. In a race that long, with constant traffic, restarts, and chaos, it is easy to let something go. Drivers do it all the time. But Busch did not. He stayed in the race, stayed focused, and waited. And when the window finally opened, when Herbst was right there in front of him with just laps left, he made his decision, and he did not hesitate. Hamlin heard the radio, knew the context, and broke it down clearly. The team had met their fun quota. Busch saw the opportunity and took it. That is not just a throwaway line. That is a driver explaining exactly how frustration builds over a full race. A bad car, a long day, a hit that should not have happened, and then one final chance to respond. And Hamlin, one of the most respected voices in this garage, did not rush to call it wrong. He understood it. That matters, because drivers know the difference between racing hard and sending a message. And this was a message. But here is where this story goes beyond just one moment at Bristol. What does this mean going forward? Because this is not just about one move. This is about a driver who has gone 101 races without a win. A team that is clearly feeling the pressure. And a season that keeps slipping further away with every week. When drivers get pushed into that space, the way they race starts to change. The patience gets thinner, the decisions get sharper, and the line between racing and retaliation starts to blur. That is what makes this moment important. Because the only moment of satisfaction Busch got at Bristol was not a finish. It was not points. It was not progress. It was sending a rival into the wall in the final laps. That Bristol revenge on Riley Herbst was cold, calculated, and 185 laps in the making. Denny Hamlin laid it all out on Monday morning. And if you were watching that race thinking it was just a racing incident, now you know it was anything but. But the real question is this. The next time these two drivers are on track together, does it stop here, or is this just the beginning?